Hey everyone, welcome back to Fed Up with me, Fed Up Gaz, the eternal miserable one. Joining me again today are Spencer and Valentine from Black Daggers in Canada. How are you both today?
Excellent. Can't complain.
Hey,
Yeah, doing
we're doing
well.
good. All going well. So, for those that may not have come across the band before, well, you're the lead singer guitarist, Valentine. Spencer, could you tell us a little bit about what you do as well?
Yeah, I'm the drummer. That's my main role. I aid in other areas, but as far as most people are going to be concerned, I play the skins.
Yeah.
Yeah.
First thing, first thing I noticed before we get into all the lyrics and themes is, man, I'm probably not the only person who said this. There is such a wide range in the music. I can hear bits of stoner rock, fuzz, little bit of a punk vibe coming through, heavy metal with a bit of grunge as well, and then even I don't know if anyone's mentioned this, even a slight horror punk vibe as well. On
Mm.
top of that, it's like all mixed together, and it made it. There's no ego stroking. It made it a very interesting lesson because there's that wide range there. It grabs you. There's all those elements. Emphasis on the riffs, the catchy hooks, the choruses, voices in particular got me as well. These broken bones too, and I was like, man, and the concept which we'll get into is fascinating. But I'm gonna try and behave like you get a word in a minute before I go to that. So I'm just wondering to both of you, did you just naturally, organically create music from what you love, drawn from everything, and thought we're not going to worry about pigeonholing ourselves into this genre that we're just simply going to write, play, and see what comes out?
I think yeah. I mean
Pretty
that's
much.
that's
Mm.
exactly it. Yeah.
Hmm.
I mean when it comes to like writing, I mean I can only really speak for myself, and I think maybe Spencer agrees here too. But we like to look at like every idea and then see if we can make something with it. And there's like a lot of bands that we listen to, and myself, I probably have the most eclectic taste of the band. And I listen to everything, and so it really just we try to just grab a little bit of everything, and that's also something that we really wanted to set the foundation for, because at the end of the day, like, we want to delve into different sounds as we continue on. So like the second record's going to sound different than the first record.
Mm.
And I mean, sure, we might alienate some people who expect like exactly what we did on the first record, but I think, we'll also be providing new stuff. And if you want to hear what we did on the first record, it still exists, and so there'll be elements of that still carried forward. And there'll probably be a sound, amongst the band, but we want to be able to have, some punk riffs, some heavier riffs, some,
Mm.
softer stuff where we delve into like a little bit of acoustic stuff. That's, on the end of the album, Carpe Diem. It's no coincidence, that we went into acoustics and a little more of an avant-garde approach with that one, because that's something that we're going to explore later on too with other stuff. And I think we want to try and have like maybe a theme of an acoustic song being like the closer on each album, so we can kind of delve into a little bit of that.
Hmm.
Yeah, and if you think as well, it's interesting you mention acoustic because my mind already thinks, especially with like the lyrics and the themes, which we'll obviously get into, you could even put that kind of like dark country southern gothic feel on it with an acoustic track where, okay, it's acoustic, but it's still got that sinister dark element to it,
Hmm.
which is a good way to close out an album, say, that has the themes which we'll obviously, we're gonna talk about. So I was very interested to hear. And as you were saying about evolving there, Valentine, no one is ever going to be happy with anything that they
Hmm.
do. I mean, same for this show. There might be people like, I just want you to talk to this genre of music all the time. I'm going forward, I'm trying to keep a kind of heavy metal and extreme metal base, punk hardcore as well as the foreground. But it is nice to get some other genres every now and then just to mix it up a bit, just for something different. And I mean, I noticed in one of the press photos, one of you is wearing a Baptist shirt, like that band as well. So I was like, these guys, some people who made the service might think, oh yeah, this is just like bits of grunge, hard rock, classic heavy metal. And I'm like, well, they're obviously like the extreme stuff as well. So I thought that was awesome. You know,
Yeah,
I think,
I'd say like our guitarist Stanley, he really has quite a diverse taste, and he brings a lot of the heavier elements. A lot of this record, like it was Spencer and I, we kind of connected to like make some music, and we were sort of working on a recording project, and it more or less turned into a band, and Stanley and Mike joined and added their flair on stuff, and a lot of the like meat of the songs was kind of written already when Stanley had joined, but like anything that you hear that's like an additional guitar, like other stuff, aside from maybe the main riffs, in a lot of cases, that was all Stanley. He wrote all of that himself and added all of that. So, it was a really combined effort. Like we really worked on it a lot. I wrote all the lyrics, but I mean, yeah, in terms of the music, like a lot of it was written in combination, and everybody added their little spice to it. Mike brought a lot to the table. It was a good effort, and what we recorded was like a fraction of what we did. We wrote 25 songs last year.
Whoa!
And it was like we got to the point that we just like we wanted to get something out there, because we spent almost a year looking for a singer and couldn't find anybody. And I didn't want to do it.
So he took one for the team.
Yeah. We were like, well, we got to do something. We got to get shows. We got, like, let's get something going. So, they wanted me to sing. And so we did it. And we're like, well, we can always find someone else potentially later. And it's sort of, it kept going. And I think we released what we wanted to release at the moment. And we'll see how things go, moving forward. But everybody worked really hard, and I'm really happy with what we did.
Yeah. It was definitely a labor of love, let me tell you.
Well, that's good. I mean, the passion shines through. There's one thing before we go through track by track. There's one thing I noticed, and this is me being the nerd in me and having the interest in horror as well, as the title, the album, Phantasmagoria. So, is that what I'm thinking? Reference to the Phantasm movies and to Fangoria, the horror zine as well? Is it a combination of those two put together?
It actually, we kind of struggled with an album title. We had it thrown around a few. Intervals Insanity was another one. We were kind of looking at like something that sort of described the album itself. And one of the big things that the themes of the album was like lucid dreams and hallucinations and kind of paranoia and seeing things that aren't there. And so like Phantasmagoria literally means like illusions and things that, seeing things
that may be real or may not be real.
Yeah. We were like, that's like a perfect name for the album. We're that's gotta be exactly what it is, So, that's how we stumbled upon it. So that's where it comes from.
Wow, that's still a hell of a good title. It's just a nerd in me. At first I thought, oh, is that in reference, as I said, to the classic movies and the horror scene? So jumping into the tracks. Actually, before we do, I thought this is interesting as well. The album artwork. It was shot at the abandoned Riverview Hospital, where the Matrix, Supernatural, X-Files, Deadpool, Final Destination 2, all of those were themed there. And I mean, it's got the way it's shot with the black and white. It's like very ominous and dark, and it makes you think, right, there's a presence there, and that's a good way of fitting, I think, with the themes that we're going to talk about in a moment with the album itself. So I thought it was a really very interesting way of drawing people into your album, guys.
Yeah. I mean, the photographer that did the photo, Nat Birch, I mean, he's got a great eye, and he's a friend of Stan's, our guitarist, personal friend, and he did it as like a favor for the band. So shout out to him. He does fantastic work. You can find him on Instagram, and I mean, it was kind of a coincidence. He happened to be in the area, and we were kind of like, we had discussed like what the album was about, and he's like, hey, I'm like right next to this place. What do you guys think? We're like, okay, yeah, go ahead. And So he sent us a bunch of different ones, and just that one shot of, you know, kind of the building and how ominous it was. That's exactly it.
Yeah.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow, yeah, that's like you're in a prison. I mean,
Yeah.
that definitely feels like a, you know, a prison of the mind sort of thing. You know,
Yeah.
that speaks volumes, because just the place that it is. And I mean, I'm here in the album is exactly that, trying to break out of an asylum. So I was like,
Yeah.
this is, you know, perfect. Like that would be awesome. So
Yeah, and it's interesting as well. You know, you were both saying like it tells around a lot of what's real and what isn't real, hallucinations, conceptions of reality, and I sometimes think you know, when you've got like traditional horror stories and cases of these mysterious creatures and things that reported to have happened wherever. I think some of the greatest horror actually happens sadly in a person's mind when they're in a really troubled, vulnerable position through traumatic experiences or something that perhaps witnessed.
Yeah.
And like it's almost like that person is trapped in that state of purgatory. How am I going to get out of this? Get back to who I am? There's like something tormenting me, and then what am I seeing here? Is it real? And then how, you know, others can be quick to discard them. All right, you're crazy, blah blah blah. That's it. And so yeah, I think very powerful, strong themes you've got. So let's open up with, you know, the opening track, Best I've Got, and it's a perfect segue here. And it says this song, you know, it feels like you've given everything you can. You know, nothing is ever good enough, and you know, it says in a press release as well that you felt that many people could relate to this song. So,
Mhm.
was this always the intention to have an opener as powerful as this one to really hook people in, both lyrically and musically?
I think I mean, Valentine can discuss the probably a little more on the progression of the story and choosing that to start.
Hmm.
But I mean, I think the important thing was to lay it out of the gate that we're just trying to be authentic to what we're doing, right? And that includes writing music that not only that we can just get behind, but lyrically and contextually, I can, you know, even me personally, I'm like, okay, I maybe didn't write the lyrics, but I can relate to this, right? Like, you know, it's got an impactful feel, and that's where I came from with it, and that's why like Valentine and I had kind of started a bit of the you know, like as he mentioned, right, doing all the demos and composing stuff together, and he did all the lyrics, and then he developed this character, and then he was able to take these lyrics and these ideas, write these lyrics, and sequence them in this order, and it just made sense. I think Valentine, I'll let you take it from there, but effectively starting from there, this is the beginning of it, and then this is where it's going to progress as you go through the record. Tells a story. Each song's a chapter.
yeah. Like, I mean, overall with the album itself, as I went, it sort of started almost like a Tarantino movie. I sort of started in the
Yeah.
middle, and then, you know, I was like, okay, what's the ending? What's the beginning? And it's funny because Best I've Got is one of the last songs that was written, and it's one of the first songs that appears on the album. But to me, it felt like that song, in a lot of ways, there's a lot of different things that I'm saying in it. You know, like it's about you know, loyalty. One of the lyrics is, you know, say it to my face, even if it's the death of me. You know, hoping that people will be honest with you. You know, but no one's ever truly honest in a lot of cases. You know, you get a lot of like fake people, especially in the music industry.
Mm.
You know, and it, like, you know, it came from a place of frustration where sometimes, you know, you're giving everything that you can, and somebody's like, ah, well, just a little more, you know, just a little more. And every little piece that you give, you're kind of breaking off a little more. And part of the lyrics are, you know, the guy's like basically at the end of his rope. And so it itself is him like kind of basically hitting his final, you know, ending. And he's like, I'm done. And it's, you know, part of it, he also in the song, he's taken way too much. You know, that kind of leads into like he's kind of ODing, you know, basically during the end of the song. And that's where it's picking up in These Broken Bones in the second song, where he's kind of now, you know, hitting the rock bottom. He's kind of failing. He's calling out for help. but he doesn't get the help he expected, necessarily. So,
Yeah.
it's that was sort of where that came from. Was it was just a place of frustration. It was actually it's sort of a personal thing to me, but the character itself is fictional, but the song material came from a place of like an argument with somebody, if I'm being honest. So,
Well, these things inspire. Excuse me, inspire art. They keep it authentic. Sadly, there's no shortage of snakes anywhere. Those that particularly come out the woodworks as well at times. And I thought it was interesting that the character, he makes a deal with the devil, it goes wrong, it explores like struggling with vices, addiction, depression, everything that comes with that, anxiety, the mood swings. Reason it really stood out to me as well, because this is something that's been quite a familiar topic on the show with COVID, because there was sadly a lot of mental health issues have happened with COVID, people getting addicted to whatever and stuff, and we're still dealing with that now as well. People think, oh, just because COVID's decreased, it's not what it was. These problems now, everything has gone away. No, they haven't. There's still people struggling. And to use the classic kind of analogy, they say like demon drink. So taking a spin on that, and I don't know, using this kind of like with someone making a deal with the devil, and this forms the basis for the protagonist and then the lyrics and themes. It's relatable, very dark, obviously can be very personal, both for people in the band and outside of the band. And like I said earlier, that often I think is the true horror, is that experience, is struggling with it. It can hit anyone at any time. Person who's always been the strong one, say, supporting others, and that happens to them. And then they're faced with that struggle on trying to deal with that situation because they're not used to it. And then the worst thing is often you can get is somebody to say, oh, pull yourself together, you'll be all right. Or you just need to do this. Oh, you need to get out more. You need to go and do this. They're like, yeah, no, but the steps, it's not just going to happen, overnight. So moving to the next song, These Broken Bones. And this one, it starts off the character at a low point in his life. He's feeling very desperate, isolated. And this is where he decides to make a bargain with the devil. This immediately, before I even get any further, I couldn't help think of the story about, is it the classic blues musician Robert Johnson, who made Deal with the Devil at the Crossroads?
I think Stan and I watched that one night when we were in the process of recording the record.
Right.
Because we recorded it all at my house. Whoa. And one night, we were kind of done and having a couple of beers, and we throw something on Netflix, and they're like, "Oh, let's watch this," right? But yeah, that's exactly what. It's funny you mentioned that. We were recording the record when we watched that, both Stan and I.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. Honestly, that is literally what come to mind when I was reading about it. And what's interesting as well is midway through the song, it switches to the devil's perspective, where he outlines the deal that's been made. And why that's interesting is because normally that doesn't happen. You just hear from the person who's made the deal with the devil. In any TV series or whatever, you don't get his side, where it's like, well, this person's like trying to break the contract or whatever. So that was a really interesting duality that you put on the song. I mean, music is very good. So you just mentioned, Spencer, a little bit about what has obviously inspired the song there. So was it for that reason, Valentine, that you wanted to put the devil's side on, because that normally isn't done? We normally don't get his perspective.
Yeah, and I mean, it was also I when I was playing the riff, just the lyrics for the chorus, when I came up with the chorus riff, the lyrics literally just spilled out of me. I was like, wow, where'd that come from? It just hit me, and I was like, okay, so that's got to be like the devil, and that was the first part that I wrote, was literally the chorus. I kind of worked backwards, and there was also a slight homage to Tenacious D. I think everybody loves Jack Black and Tenacious D, and I was like, it's so cool when the devil shows up and he's like, riffing. I was like, that would be awesome to like have our own version of that, and something like that. I was like, let's do it. Like that's cool. You never hear from the devil.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I thought that was a really interesting, as I said, really interesting perspective. In the lyrics as well, there's one part where it says, "You've had a taste of my power, but it don't come cheap. The price of admission, you could say that it's rather steep." It's just, again, it's interesting to hear that side of it. And the next one, "Surfing a Vibe." I know this one's got a lot of attention. This song. And then this it says the lyrics can be interpreted in a number of ways. It says, again, a press release goes on to say, when you were writing it, the idea behind the character was him feeling high, feeling euphoria, following his deal. It's like, I'm guessing, right, I'm going to be okay now. And so it could loosely be interpreted as a struggle with addiction. And what it was really meant was to paint a picture of the character being very manic and making poor life choices. So is that when we're often we can be in those vulnerable positions where we're more susceptible to vices and make poor decisions and choices. And sometimes if you've got to be careful, because if we make a series of bad ones, we can end up really going far down the rabbit hole to a point where we might not be able to get out of it.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's really sums it up. I mean, the character is, he kind of feels like he's doing great, but even as that song goes on, in part of it, in the second verse, he's saying like, this monkey on my back, and it's because he's kind of started to realize, like, he wants to surf the vibe, but he's also like, wait a second, like now this is maybe wait a second, hold on. He starts to realize really quickly that this was a mistake, and now it's like too late, but he's high on this newfound power, and he's feeling great and re-energized, and it's quickly starts to slip away from him, and he's basically, I think the other side of it could be interpreted like, people, whenever you like fall for somebody too, you're surfing on somebody's vibe, there's a lot of different ways you could interpret the lyric. It really depends on how you want to look at it too. So
exactly. It's got, because it could be, okay, if you're falling for the wrong person, the person that you thought they were going to be, oh man, this person was great in the beginning, awesome energy, like you said, getting euphoria from it, and then get to that midpoint of the relationship, like, well, who is this person? It's almost like the veil's being dropped. There's completely different. I guess I'm like, I could be accused of referencing every kind of narcissist on the planet and energy vampires the lot. But these things happen, and that's one perspective. It certainly could be interpreted in that way for sure.
I wanted it to be a fairly broad, kind of song, and the other side is like potentially like, even like a heroin injection, type addiction, with like, having it in your veins, hidden in my veins, passing out on the floor, things like that. It's, it was kind of, I know friends that have struggled with a lot of hard drug addictions as well. And, I know that it can be very euphoric. Initially, you think, oh, this is fantastic, and then quickly that also gets pulled out from underneath of you. And then the struggles that people deal with that as well. And then when they're high, they're surfing that vibe. But, the other side of it is it's a monkey on their back and they can't get away from it.
Yeah. And I think what people forget as well when anybody's battling addiction, it's the family or the people that are around them who are very close to them that will stand by that person, that go through it as well, and often can even go down with them. It can get depression, anxiety themselves, because it's like that sense where, I don't mean this in a horrible way either, but because it's not easy. It's such a battle, but that person still has to have some modicum of wanting to help themselves. The other people can be
Yeah.
there to support them, but if that modicum isn't there, then it's like they're either sadly going to really fall or
Well,
just be
that's
yeah,
you think about it. I mean, that's why people have interventions too. They're literally
yeah,
saying, "Look, you have to want to help yourself." You
yeah,
know, there's the old saying. It's like you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make
yeah,
him drink it, right?
yeah,
So, I mean, at some point, you know, when somebody's dealing with issues, whether it's addiction or mental health or whatever the case is, if they don't want to get better, there's nothing that your friends or family can do about it. And it's hard at some point. You force them to make a decision to be like, okay, how much more am I willing to go through this with them if they don't even want to help themselves? And that's where you get these interventions where people are like, okay, if you don't go get help, I need to cut you out of my life. And that's
yeah. For
it's
the
sad,
person,
but that's
yeah,
what it eventually comes to.
yeah,
So
yeah. It is. It's for their own sanity as well,
mhm.
and
Well, exactly.
and it's really tragic because um there can be those instances sometimes as well. It's a really it's so complex because you can think a person is doing well and getting better,
Hmm.
and then the next day you get absolute tragic news, and yeah, it's
Hmm.
always what I'm hinting at, and you're
Yeah.
like,
Mhm.
I thought this person was doing better,
Yeah.
was helping themselves,
Hmm.
and sometimes it's because that individual doesn't want to be a burden to others, doesn't want to
Hmm.
bother them, that thinks
Hmm.
I don't want to put this on them, so
Hmm.
the only way I can, and it's yeah, it's such a complex web,
Yeah.
um, very very sad. But as you said with the song, it's I mean, another way it could be interpreted is people being addicted to social media,
Hmm.
such as TikTok, where you've got all these like ego stroking compliments on each other, getting
Yeah.
all that euphoria from it. And then once that stops, once they're off and those alone ones, it's like an addict. They've come down
Yeah.
off that high then. And it's like,
I've,
nah, I need the next fix.
I've even caught myself too, just being online doing stuff, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I work online and everything, and like you get that dopamine fix, right? And
Yeah.
then you just kind of keep craving that dopamine fix wherever you get
Yeah.
it. For some people, it's food. For some people, it's drugs. For some people, it's social media. And then you start to build up a bit of a tolerance for it, where it's like, you're no longer getting that high from it. It's more like it becomes just a distraction, and you're unable to function.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
No, that's true. And I mean, to put even another horror spin on it, you could then go and argue, well, is this all tools by the Matrix there to program and control people?
yeah.
Again, we could be here all day. Just we could probably just do the whole episode around that one song and
Yeah.
the different.
Okay, I'll ask the question you're asking. Are we in a simulation? Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Is anybody out there know the code to break that simulation?
Yeah,
As
exactly.
well?
Yeah. Terminator 2 turns out to be a documentary.
Real life.
Yeah.
um, the next song, this was actually one of my favorites off the album. This one really caught me. I love the musical arrangements, everything in it, the vocals. I thought it was really well done. And it said with voices, you tried to create the feeling of someone who's losing touch with reality, and you made a conscious effort to change up the vocal delivery and use two different styles of singing to capture the different voices in his head. That man, I mean, that alone, before we get even any further, that itself is just so interesting to unpack. And like you were earlier with getting the devil's perspective, and as we hear with people in these situations where they're hearing the different voices talking to them, it's like you've really wanted to authentically portray that to the listeners. So when you were doing the different vocals, Valentine, did you really put yourself in a place where you were thinking of how these different voices would talk to the character?
Yeah. I mean, like the initial voice in the song itself is supposed to be the character's voice. And you don't hear him very often. You hear him in voices and you hear him in Carpe Diem, but for most of it, it's all an internal voice. And so as you hear it, the internal voice that you're hearing, like from surfing and stuff, that's his internal voice.
Right.
And so like his external voice is what you're hearing in voices in Carpe Diem, the lower voice. And so his internal voice, as you hear it, it starts to get more and more tainted. And so like that's the part that he's hearing all these other voices and it's talking to him, that he's hearing this stuff. And then there's the whispers as well, which is like we wanted to be very 3D with the sound and have it, you know, play out. So if you're hearing with headphones, it's in the front of you, it's behind you, it kind of moves all over the place. And it was to really give that sense of like paranoia. So yeah, I kind of wanted to make sure that he would have a voice in the story, but that most of it would be his like subconscious, and you wouldn't hear him too often. But he's actually speaking in that part in the verses.
Wow.
And we also did the gang vocals on that too.
Yeah,
They-
yeah, I
like,
noticed, Matt.
Yeah, which was a whole other thing.
Yeah, that's where I noticed the slight hardcore vibe and punkish vibe there, which I
Nice.
thought was really cool. So you know when you're hearing the lyrics, Spencer, the riffs and the guitars, I'm just curious, because of the themes and the atmosphere that's presented in the music, how did that impact upon your drumming style?
Well, for me, it all comes down to emotion, like getting an emotional response. So I have to get some kind of emotional response out of what I'm hearing and having to play to, right? And then from that point on, once I can kind of lock in with that, it's a matter of, you know, I feel like I'm able to play with a lot more confidence and really lay something down. Had we had a little more time, I probably would have spent more time doing a few things. But generally speaking, you know, I was like, you know what, some of these are like it's easy to get a little self-indulgent on a few things, and I didn't want to do that at all because I felt like we've got enough to, you know, there's enough going on within the record to digest. I felt that,
Yeah.
you know, we don't really need to, you know, worry about trying to replicate Danny Carey or anything like that. You know, as much as I love to play Tool here and there, and you know, but you know, these are, you know, some of these songs are just straightforward rock songs. So you know, it's like once I can just feel that emotional connection, I can just try to give as driving of a beat as I can in this case, and I think for the most part it worked. You know,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah, and we added that hi-hat bit. That was kind of a last minute thing in the verse. We wanted to add something that sort
right,
of added a bit of tension and sort of had like a clock ticking
the clock
sort
timing,
of
yeah.
feel. So that's where the hi-hat in the verse
Like
comes from.
it's supposed to be
And
like
it's
the second hand, you know,
constantly
tick, tick,
ticking
tick, tick,
behind the
tick, yeah.
character, whereas time
Yeah.
is kind of running short. He's starting to feel pressure.
Yeah.
And I actually did a bit of a throwback to the first song, actually, in that song. There's a splash cymbal thing at the very beginning, in Voices. It's kind of him, you know, it's referencing kind of back to the first song, you know, looking back. So there was just kind of a little bit of an Easter egg. I don't know if anyone would have picked up on that. But that was kind of, you know, like if you listen to the beginning of Voices, that splash cymbal,
Yeah.
it's very reminiscent of the beginning of Best I've Got.
Oh, and I will certainly be listening differently
Yeah.
now. The thing, one of the most consistent aspects that I noticed with the whole album music is, I think I maybe mentioned this earlier, is the hooks, where regardless of whatever lyrically, you know, the themes or whatever it is, that kind of, even though, you know, this is obviously a dark subject matter, but there's that fun hook. It's catchy. It's catching the listener. You're there for the ride, and like you said, it's just regardless of whatever other genres are listening, you know, it's straight up rock and roll. It's got people in there, and that's what I found it to be, a very enjoyable and accessible album, and I think other people will just for that reason. So coming to the next one, I'm Here. Now this is interesting as well, because the song picks up with the character is after he's gone off the deep end. It says you find him locked away in a mental institution, plotting his escape. And at this point, he doesn't believe there's anything wrong with him. But when he does escape, he realizes how insane he truly is. And that's interesting because, you know, when we've heard about these stories before, you know, the classic case, even if it's fictional, you read it in a novel or a comic, for example, it'd be, you know, the person says, no, I'm not crazy. You're the one who's crazy.
Yeah.
So this was interesting just for that reason, where after he's escaped, he realizes just how truly insane he was. So I'm curious what the reasoning was behind that to present that in the song.
Oh yeah. I mean, you know, the whole album itself, when I kind of where it came from was I had this song and it actually got cut from the album. It's called Reflections. It might actually make its way out at some point, but stay tuned, I guess. But the original idea was like I had this character and the lyrics written were about him being trapped in the asylum. And then all of the like nurses, everyone coming in, giving him sponge baths, you know, like strapping him down. He was kind of taking that all as like sexual advances. So he was like really crazy. And so he's like thinking like, oh, this is amazing. You know,
It was
all
a
these
great
kids
idea.
are really
Yeah, I'm in the best place
stuff.
ever. Yeah.
And so I was like, so how does this crazy guy get into this insane asylum to begin with? And so that's where like that kind of idea came from. And then I sort of wrote a story about like, how does that happen? And then, you know, I still wanted to have something about him in the asylum. And I figured it would be really funny if he like busted out and then, you know, like clearly he's really crazy. And he gets out and, you know, he realizes, wait a second, well, I'm still hearing all the voices, you know, like maybe these people are onto something. And you know, so that's kind of the idea of how he got into the asylum in the first place, is he sort of loses his mind at the end of Voices, sort of picks up into the asylum, and then he's trying to get out of the asylum. But there is that song that's like cut out now, so it sort of feels a little disjointed in there, maybe a little bit, but yeah, I still wanted him to have, you know, a little bit of fun. And so that song I think is like the most fun song on the album, a little more punky, a little more lo-fi.
Yeah.
You know, Eagles of Death Metal was a big influence for that type of a song.
Yeah. I actually really like the irony or the juxtaposition or contrast, if you will, that I think, you know, that I hear in some songs, and I think we achieved that on a couple, where it's like, you know, you take something that's got, you know, maybe a dark subject matter, right?
Yeah.
But it's kind of disguised by a fairly upbeat song, right? Or vice versa, where you might have like, I don't know, a death metal song that sings about lollipops, sunflowers, and rainbows, right? Like,
Yeah.
so you know, I kind of like that little juxtaposition, and I think, you know, I'm Here is kind of one of those, you know, maybe. So
I see. I like that though. When bands, or you know, even if it's a movie or even a game or something, where people step outside the box, do something that little bit different, or put that kind of spin on it. I always find that that always grabs me. And good. I mean, you can certainly say there's obviously the dark humor vibe there as well, the dark comedy. I mean, like you said, Valentine, he's in a mental institution, thinks he's in like the equivalent of a brothel or something, and he's like, hey, yeah. So, I mean, I can't help think of the Joker from Batman, kind of sat there thinking he's in like a 5-star resort or something.
Right. Yeah. That's the idea. Yeah.
Yeah. And what was the other thing this made me think of as well? Well, it was Voices actually. What was that movie? And it was part of a trilogy where, oh man, I forget the actor's name. And he's got like the different personalities. One of them, I think, is the Beast. And
oh,
yeah.
That's
Split.
like Shyamalan kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it made me think of that as well, man. Very interesting. Before we talk about the next tracks, curious as well. What inspired the name of the band, Black Daggers?
I always say that it's the band name that sucked the least, in my opinion. I hate almost every band name, so I'm like, you guys just pick something, and I'll go with what I think sucks the least.
Yeah, and I think you'd have to. I mean, Stan's not here, but I'm pretty sure it was his suggestion.
I
I
think it
mean,
was his, yeah.
we vote on everything. It's a democracy, and so like we also struggled with like a band name. I think we had like, I don't know, probably a dozen or more that we were kind of mulling over, and we just kind of voted them down. And Black Daggers is the only one that we voted enough to keep. So yeah, that's where we're at.
Do you do that as well with the lyrics? You know, when you're writing, Valentine, do you share it with the rest of the band and get that feedback and say, look, what do you think of this, guys? Do you think this works here? Do we need to change this up or maybe take this part out?
I think with some stuff we definitely work together on it. Like we
Yeah.
all kind of help produce it. We self-produce, so you know it was a lot of everybody working on stuff together. But Best I've Got, that one's really funny because for like I think 6 months we had the music done, but I never recorded any of the vocals, and so the band had never actually heard any of the vocals before I went in and did the scratch take, and they were like, "That's what you're gonna sing for it? That's crazy." And
Yeah.
I was like, "Yeah, that's kind of what I had in
Yeah.
mind. Like, I don't know what you guys think." They're like, "That's great. Just
Yeah,
do
like,
that. Like, that's good. That's awesome."
I think we all know enough to know where everybody's strengths are, so we kind of give them general free reign to do that. Like
Yeah.
Valentine is you know he's the Kanye West of Black Daggers. He's a lyrical wordsmith, right?
Yeah.
And so he's always coming up with lyrics and everything. So we just let him do it. And then like I remember, you know, he'll kind of sing it like he said to us, but then we might have a couple of things like, hey, maybe you should just think about changing this, that, or the other. But for the most part, 99% of what he does is what he does, right? And as far as the vocals and the lyrics, so you know, we come in like I'd say I tend to help more. Probably I help him on like composition. Stan does the same thing, you know, and so did Mike. You know, I'm more of a compositional arrangement music kind of thing. Like I'll play some guitar. We've got riffs and everything. You know, that'll be like my contribution as well as like the recording of it and all that. You know, like I said, we do kind of all that. So the production, the actual work involved in capturing all the sounds, you know, like that's where I had experience, you know, and it made sense to have me step in there. And then, you know, everyone else has had experience in many different areas too. Like Stan had a bunch of gear that he loaded into my house. Like you should have seen it. It was good. I think between Valentine and Stan, they had like, I don't even want to say how much, but let's just say it's a healthy 5 figures worth of guitar amps and gears.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would argue probably close to that.
So yeah, I mean, we all sort of like contribute in different parts, but I mean, with this album in particular, it was a lot of stuff that I had written, and like a couple of the songs I'd written prior to starting the band, and then the other stuff was written together and more or less over the year and a half that we were working, sort of prior to getting anything recorded. But I mean, we also there's a lot of other stuff that will be coming down the line that's contributed from Stan, you know, and Spencer. So it just happened that, you know, a lot of this, I had a really strong idea in terms of the concept, and the guys were just really awesome in supporting that, and you know, kind of seeing it through and giving me a little bit of that creative freedom so that I could actually follow the vision that I had, and you know. I don't know that this is exactly what I had in mind, because I think we were shooting for like 12 to 14 songs, but we, you know, when the real life kicked in and we realized maybe that's not realistic right now, you know, we kind of made it into what worked, and I think you know, still very happy with what we did, and it was awesome that everybody, you know, worked together and pulled it together, and I think, you know, it was really supportive and collaborative effort from everyone. And it wouldn't be the same record without the 4 people involved that recorded it, for sure.
Yeah, I'm getting that.
Everyone's stamp is on it.
Yeah, putting on all their particular signature. Yeah, I'm getting that sense that you work together very well. As you were saying, Spencer, you all know what works for each area, what you can do. I mean, it's still, it's 8 tracks, so it's still a solid length EP for sure. We could argue, you know, a mini album. So coming on to Wasted, which is the 6th song, and this one I feel could be interpreted in a number of ways as well. It says it's from, you know, the point of view of speaking to your inner demons, and the song freely switches from one to the other. Interesting again, it's not meant to be clear who is the one speaking at any given point. It's a conversation in the mirror, and and then it goes on to say, it's a relatable concept for people who struggle with their own inner demons. Well, just on the song title alone, that immediately, it's obvious, makes me think of people who are struggling with alcohol addiction, and hearing like those inner demons talking to them. It'll often be, right, just take another swill, one swill, it'll be okay, you're just gonna have a short one, that's it. And then before you know it, that bottle's gone, another bottle's gone, and whatever. And yes, this obviously could be interpreted with other forms of addiction as well, or even depression. Somebody sat there, say, I know they're on the bed at night, just literally transfixed, and hearing those other voices talking to them, and unable to move. So, again, very, very powerful themes in it. I just wondered what the inspiration was for the themes in this. Was it to do with some of those areas that I mentioned, or something else as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely the song itself. It's really supposed to be about like the struggle with addiction, and like that's really where it comes from, and people, it basically, I think a lot of my friends, a lot of people that I've seen throughout the music industry, as they get into it, maybe they aren't drinking as much, and like a few years into it, they're full-blown alcoholics, and it's like something that's really tough to kick. And I've seen other people who like to have party with recreational drugs, and everybody was doing different drugs, and then fentanyl came out, and I've seen a few people who died and OD'd over just trying to have a good time, and everyone says, well, I can control it, I can, it doesn't control me. Well, in some cases it can, and that's always the danger
for some people. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people, I'd say.
Yeah, that's right, and that's a good point, Spencer, because everybody's different, everybody's tolerance levels are different as well, and what could be, say, not so harmful to one person might have that disastrous effect on that person straight away. And I'm not promoting doing this in any regard, saying, oh yeah, well, I'm used to it, so I'm going to take the I'm not suggesting that for a minute. But yeah, that's certainly can happen. And I think as well, with if someone who's been through, as I said, we've said throughout the show, if it's someone who's been through traumatic experiences, and it's like that form of escapism for them, right? I'll drink, I'll put myself in another state, so I'll forget about it.
Self-medicating.
Yeah. Really is.
Yeah.
And the other thing I noticed as well with with the track lengths of a lot of the songs, they're all kept at kind of like the 3 to 4 minute range, and is that to go with the sense of, which I was saying earlier, that they're very catchy, they've got the hooks which keep you there, that retain you there for the EP. So is that just to keep everybody locked in for the ride, keep that that rock and roll spirit there, so it's not, I guess, just to keep the attention span? Is that behind it?
I would say for the most part, generally speaking, yeah. Because if you think about it, there's only with some obvious exceptions. I mean, you listen to radio, for example. The average song is 3 minutes or less, right? People and people don't. But to be honest, the general population doesn't. The average music listener doesn't have a long attention span for a song, say, that's like 7-8 minutes long, right? So that's just the reality of it. As much as us as musicians and artists would probably love to, and then hey, we probably will end up doing a couple songs that stretch on that longer side, but I mean, you got to find a balance for so I guess the short answer is yes, we're conscious of it. We're aware of the timing, and especially when you're first coming onto the scene like us, like it's our first record, you kind of have to be aware of that, I think, a little more, and just so that people don't write you off as quickly because you've got about 10 seconds to capture their attention if they don't know who the hell you are.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And I mean, we did, in some songs, like, I mean, Best I've Got, it has a really long intro. It's a minute and a half before you hear vocals.
Yeah.
And so some of it was like, definitely we wanted to go in like a little bit more of a progressive direction with like some of the, songs. We definitely wanted to ride on different intros and really set the tone and feel, and that definitely was important to us. But at the same token, like, we also wanted to make sure that it was accessible, and I mean, even giving up 2 minutes is a lot of people's time in today's day and age, unfortunately. And so we wanted to be mindful of that, as well as just keep all the songs really tight, and have the parts like flow really well. And I think that's something I'm really proud of, is that the album, if you throw it on, it's a half hour long, but you can throw it on and listen to it, and it ebbs and flows, and there's ups and downs, and it doesn't feel like just one homogenous block of music.
It doesn't, and it doesn't feel like you're going to give it one listen and then move on. You could happily start again. The flip to what we've just said, though, with the attention spans, I will say this: the positive, certainly in the metal scene, and particularly the underground metal scene, is the fans there tend to be more receptive as well to longer length music because they're passionate about it. So that's a good thing for you guys going forward when you do some of those longer songs.
Yeah,
that the audience and fan base were more receptive to that.
Yeah, I mean, these Broken Bones and Surfing a Vibe is actually recorded as one single track, and we only split it in mastering because like we did the whole thing as all 7.5 minutes as one solid song, because they all shared the same tone, and that's how we intend to like be playing it live. So we wanted to capture the live feel to the album.
That was the whole point. We wanted to make sure it sounded like a band jamming, right? Like, we didn't want it to sound overproduced either. So what's one way you could do that? I'm like, you know what, just go straight into the next song, and especially it fit well with, like, he just made the deal with the devil. Now he's like ready to just get beat over the head with we're ready to beat everyone over the head with a sledgehammer, right? So
it's got that. It reminds me as like listening to a Fu Manchu album as well. Where it's got the riffs and jamming, and it goes straight into it. I love that band. But it has that feel. Coming to the track City Limits, in this one it says it's the final chapter for the character, and he decides he's made a mistake, by making a deal with the devil. He tries to run away and escape his fate, but unfortunately it's already too late. The devil comes calling. And it says this song is kind of a warning about addiction, the path it can lead you down, the consequences, which, ultimately come from that. So I just wondered if you both could tell us a little bit about the lyrical inspirations here, and how you put the music together for it as well, because I mean, this really does set up the the closing track which follows.
So that song, like, lyrically, it was a combination of myself and a friend of mine named Johnny Love from Victoria. He's on Vancouver Island, actually, and we wrote the lyrics like 14 years ago. So that song is like the oldest song on the record, and I just felt like the themes in it really felt connectable to what was going on in the rest of the story. And when I started to rewrite it, because I rewrote some of the lyrics because I wanted it to be more reflective of what was going on in this current story, and it was something I'd never actually used. Like, I'd written it in a prior band. We kind of jammed it a few times, but we never did anything with it. And when I resurrected it, I was like, I need to rewrite the lyrics and really make this fit into the theme. And I just felt like it really connected with what was going on, with what the character was going through. And the lyrics, like, about warning him to run and all that stuff, like, that was all from the original song. And I thought, like, that just fits so well, because now he's really trying to get away, because he's escaped from the asylum. He's now his life's kind of fallen apart because he's listened to his inner demons that told him, let's just get wasted, one last time, let's do it. But that was one time too many, and now the devil's at the door, and he's saying it's time to pay up. Like, you've had your fun. We've seen, you've destroyed your entire life. I've given you, ample rope to hang yourself. So it's time to come in and join the fold.
Yeah. Come to my holiday camp. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel, again, as I said, I felt it was such a powerful setup for the close, which we're going to talk about now, Carp DM, and it's really yeah, it's look, the fun vibe, the fun vibe is there on the album. They said from start to finish. Okay, yeah, it's very very dark subject matter, but the fun vibe is still there, which makes it a fun listen. You obviously want that there, because if it was miserable, well, it'd be like self-torture. Like, you might as well release like a monotone audio, but somewhere. And next, our character went down and like.
Yeah.
So Carp DM, yeah, this one is how it says it's a character swan song. At this point, he's already dead. He's reflecting on the time he's wasted, the things he didn't say or do. And again, you've got a powerful collaboration on this one as well. Worked with Marek Forinsky, probably butchered the pronunciation. The engineer,
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I made sure to breathe before I said it. It's like, don't want the diaphragm. What I'm wondering here, because this has just sparked my imagination. This had me thinking this track, because I almost could see it like the movie in my head, where he is reflecting on, as you said, what he didn't say, what he didn't do. He's not on this plane anymore. Whether he's in a devil's holiday camp. And it made me think, going forward, do you plan to do a sequel to this character where he's in this other realm and he's reflecting, but that struggle still continues? That makes sense. I was just curious. Or is this just going to be wrapped up now with this story, and it'll be something else with the next release?
I mean, the next album itself, what we're plotting to do, because we kind of thought of like 4 albums and basically building it out as an anthology. But the albums themselves they'll share some running themes, but be somewhat disconnected. But in this case, like the next album itself is going to be all about like rebirth. Because this album is all about like tearing the character down. He's dying, he's being destroyed. His ego, maybe ego death. Internally he's losing everything, and maybe he'll be reborn in the next one. But that'll be the theme of the next album, is all about rebirth and building things back from where there's nothing. So I think that'll be. Yeah, there could be some more stuff about him. Yeah. We are also working on like some of the B-sides from this record. Yeah. Because there was quite a few songs that didn't make it, and we want to work on a few of those. Potentially re-release like the album kind of as a deluxe thing next year with like all these additional B-sides that we're working on. We also have a second version of Carpe Diem that we did kind of in-house that has like a completely different arrangement on it. No strings. It's like completely different. So that'll be coming out later too.
Yeah, be interesting to hear that for sure. Yeah, very very curious. And I noticed as well, you've been getting a lot of good response. People have been very favorable to the EP. So what's been the most pleasing comment that you've seen? Has there been one where you feel somebody's really got the essence of the music and what it's about?
Yeah, I think it was I'm trying to Amplify Noise. They said they said that it was an exploration in human frailty, and I thought that was the most beautiful thing that I've read yet.
Yeah, I've just generally felt overwhelmed from the feedback, honestly. Like we kind of set forward to do this. We're like, you know what, we've got this idea. We're not gonna try to pigeonhole ourselves, and we're just gonna go do it. and hopefully a couple people get something positive out of it, right? And well, the feedback has been overwhelmingly positive. So I mean, it makes me feel like, okay, we might have done something right. You know, where it goes from here, hopefully things keep going in the right direction. But yeah, like just the feedback and the response has been beyond any of our expectations. So you know, the fact that I'm sitting here, we're now doing, for me, technically, this is my third interview. I'm surprised that I've had even one, let alone three, you know, that people want to, you know, so there's something there. So like I said, to me, that's a sign that like, oh, you know, you know, we did something I'm proud of, you know?
Yeah, it's it's something I really noticed, and again, this isn't ego stroking, but just from when I was reading the press and what people were saying, I thought these guys have really took off, and people are, you know, have been very, very warm in their responses and seem to really
Yeah,
dig them, which has been amazing to see, and
it has
that's
been.
why, for once, I didn't. It's not a question where for once I didn't have to say so. What's the response been like to the band? I
Yeah.
already know. I've seen it. You know. Mm,
Yeah. It's been I'm cautiously optimistic that it
mm,
continues that way.
mm.
You know, you know, as long as people are digging it and as long as we're enjoying what we're doing, I don't see why we don't keep doing that, right? So
Yeah.
Exactly. It's got the, as I've said throughout our conversation today, it's got the fun vibe, regardless of the subject matter. It's got that fun vibe and that hook that
mhm.
catches you. The riffage, the way it's arranged, the vocals, the drums, everything is there. It's all catchy. The different elements with the music, the different styles as well. You know, you can hear it. Maybe the average person who's new to this music or doesn't maybe dive as deep as some of us, but it's there. It certainly is, and I think it only complements the feel of the band, and I'm genuinely excited to hear the next release. What you do, the different versions, the B sides as well. As I
Well, I
said,
appreciate that.
no, you know, I genuinely mean it. As I say, when I had my first listen through, I was like, man, and I saw the you know, the references to Queen of the Stone Age in the press release, and if you think of Caius, of all the bands that come out of Caius as well, and I was listening, I just thought, man, it's
So
got like that same vibe I get from Fu Manchu. You know, when you
yeah,
listen to a Fu Manchu album where it's accessible, it's fun, it's got the riffs, but as soon as you're done with the album, you usually listen to it again straight away. The Fu Manchu album, I usually give it 2 or 3
yeah,
listens before I move on to the next release, and that was what this that was the experience I had
mhm,
with listening to, and I'm going to try and pronounce this correctly because I want people to hear the name of the title. And yes, I am plugging it, but rightly so. That was the experience I had with Phantasmagoria.
yeah,
There we go.
yeah,
Nice.
Um, yeah, there's a method in the madness. I get
yeah,
there in the
yeah,
end.
yeah.
But yeah, it was a fun one. I'm just wondering. I know you've got a couple of like visualizer videos out and stuff like that. Are you planning any more actual videos to report? I mean, to support any of the tracks?
Yeah. I mean, we just released one here Friday for Wasted. And then there is one for every single song. So like the story behind those is initially what I wanted to do is I actually wanted to do a short film that accompanied the album.
Oh,
My
nice.
idea was like I kind of see this whole thing visually. You know, I wanted people,
Same.
and this was part of like the sound effects and the things that we did on the album and the way that we built it is I want people to put on headphones, close their eyes, and be able
Yeah,
to visualize the whole thing.
yeah.
And I thought like the best way to do that is, you know, budget kind of came into it. And I was like, you know what? I kind of feel like the whole thing's like a lucid dream, like hallucinations. So that I used AI and I actually learned how to do all that stuff myself
Wow.
basically programmed all of these to make a visualizer that will sort of follow the entire story. So there's one that's going to come out for every single song. They are slowly releasing, and then there is a music video that will be done, and I'm going to be trying to do like a live action AI animation, and then also
Whoa.
like VR incorporated into it. So
Nice.
yeah, it should be out in December at some point. Hopefully that one's for Best I've Got. And I'm working on that as well. But yeah, it's I would like to do some like live videos, like a real video at some point with the band for like a music video. We'll see what we're doing kind of in the new year, but we're looking to get busy for 2024 and potentially do, you know, some shows at that point.
Yeah. But I saw some stuff. I'm getting the sense, man, that you have a very visual imagination, like I do. I see, like, I see everything like a movie in my mind. You know, from from jokes to whatever I can. I've said this so many times on the show. I literally can be walking down the street. Joke pops into my head. I see it like a movie. I'll start laughing at myself. You know, the people be like that, but when I'm the same whenever I listen to music, immediately I see the imagery and it's like a movie playing. And I've always been like that. It's the downside is it's hard switching off from that mindset sometimes. You know, if you're trying to go to sleep and you get a creative idea, it's like, oh man, that movie's playing in your head, and I'm like, oh dude, will you like end credits? Shut up. And it's like, no. It's bad, man. But yeah, I know you've got to head off in a moment, Spencer. So what I like to do, you know, when I get near the end of the show,
Sure.
I'll go with Valentine for a little bit more. But
Yeah.
is there anything that you would like to shout out? I know obviously promoting the band, but if there's anything else that you're involved with or passionate about, or shout any people out, you know, the floor is yours, sir.
Oh, thanks. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm just thrilled with what we've been able to do, and Martin Mariani, our mixer, he took what we did at my house and made it sound pretty pro. And so shout out to that guy, you know, for his good. He was a pleasure to work with as well. You know, so if you're looking for somebody who's a good mixer, Martin's your guy. And you know, I think for the most part that's about it. I mean, right now I'm just still kind of putting me on the spot here.
Yeah, I have a habit of doing
yeah,
that.
yeah. I'm sure I'm going to forget. So I'd like to thank my parents for, you know, blah, blah, you know. Well, yes, obviously I have to thank them.
Yeah.
They put up with all the noise over the years. And I mean, it's kind of a big deal. I only put out music publicly every 38 years at this rate. So
hey, concept albums take time, man.
yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I mean, I'd say I'm due again in what, another 38 years when I'm about 76. No, it won't be that long. So no, but I appreciate it. Just shout out to everyone who helped us on the record. Shout out to my brothers on the record, you know, Stan, Mike, Valentine, and just, you know, whatever happens, it's been amazing, and everyone who supported us, you know. So yeah,
just keep building on it, man. You've got something. There's that energy there in the music. You know, you obviously work well together. You know, people are instantly gravitated to the band and dig it. So
yeah. Actually, there was something I was going to say earlier and I forgot.
Oh, yeah, go for it.
I'll leave you this a little thing. And Valentine, comment in here to clarify what I mean, because you'll know what I mean. So if you hear something on the record that sounds kind of, as you were saying earlier, Queens of the Stone Age or Eagles of Death Metal, that's definitely like a Valentine footprint, right? If it sounds kind of Alice in Chains, Stone Temple Pilots-y,
yeah,
that's probably me. And then if it sounds like Stan and Mike had very, very similar tastes into like more of the hardcore stuff.
Yeah.
I think like if it gets really like banging, you know, like out there, that's those guys. Yeah.
So it's nice. All we got those personal signatures. Yeah. So when you mentioned that, because I could hear the Alice in Chains vibe on it as well. Like grunge with a bit of fuzz. I thought grunge and fuzz. In each other.
So
nice
that's how if you listen, it's like you can kind of tell who kind of had a bit of a bit of an influence on that part of that song or that whatever, right?
Oh, interesting fun facts, man.
Yeah.
Well, dude. Honestly, man. You know, thanks for talking with me today,
I appreciate
Spencer.
it. No, thanks for having me.
Oh, you're very welcome. Look, listen, man, you're welcome on anytime.
Well, thank you.
You know, so no, honestly, man. So definitely do something for the you know, the next releases for sure. So Valentine, you know, is anything that you would like to shout out or promote as well? I mean, obviously the band, but as I said, I always like to give guests the opportunity to promote something else as well.
Yeah, no, you know, just big shout out to you know, our other band members that couldn't make it. You know, like Stan and Mike, they played on the album, did great job. And yeah, I mean, we're basically just kind of doing some promotion right now. You know, we wanted to get our name out there. We didn't have a whole lot out there yet, so the idea was really just to kind of hit the ground running with you know, something that we could promote and get our name on people's radar.
Yeah.
And then, you know, we're doing a lot of stuff on TikTok, social medias. So I mean, definitely keep in touch with us on there. And we have a limited run of our album that we're doing, only 100 copies of, and it'll have the Riverview Hospital artwork. We're
Nice.
not going to do that again. We're going to have a different cover when we re-release it. So you know, this will only come out once, and we're going to hand number each one. So you know, you'll get one of 100. And
Nice.
yeah, we'll make sure that, you know, these never go out again. Only 75 are actually being made available to the public. The other 25 will be for like gifts or press giveaways, like different things like that. So they're going to be very limited. And so just get at us on like social media. They're available on our Bandcamp, like all over. So
definitely, man. Sounds right. Real quick fire. Do you have any merch coming to support the album? You know, shirts, hoodies, anything like that, and also any upcoming live shows?
You know, we're working on getting some t-shirts together. We hadn't really put them together yet, so we really didn't expect the feedback that we got so far. So
Yeah.
you know, it caught us a little bit with our pants down, so we're working on that. You know, we're gonna get some t-shirts together. And then live wise, we don't have anything just yet, but like the idea that we're looking at is we want to do something here in the new year, and probably try and, you know, get out there like around March. I mean, Canada's a wasteland for touring in the winter anyway.
Yeah, I've heard.
And I mean, you know, we really want to try and connect with some good people and see what we can do. We have a great publicist. His name's John Asher Media.
Yeah,
If any heavy bands need a publicist, you guys need to talk to him because he's amazing. And so, you know, we've been working with him for the last little bit. You know, and he's been really helpful, and we're just going to keep working with him, try and promote the record, you know, make some more connections. And we've been doing a lot of networking with a lot of local bands, like here in Red Deer, Bitter Rivals, a great one to check out. Facebook, another great one. You know, buddies of ours. So yeah, that's basically what we've been doing, trying to build a scene here in Red Deer, and you know, try and get some of these other bands on people's radar, because I mean, they deserve it as well.
Yeah, for sure. There's they come on the show. Actually, there's a band. They'll kill me now. I forget which part of Canada they're from, and they also have a bit of a Fu Manchu vibe about them, and they are called Orcs. I don't know if you know them, but they are a very nice band as well. Good folks. Fun fact on John from Asher Media. Way back in the day, when we used to do this show on a shoutcast radio station at the time, John actually came on and was one of the guests. Worked with him for a long time. He used to send me bands to play on my former radio shows as well. And definitely straight up dude. And definitely check him out. You're all out there if you need some help with PR and stuff as well. There's a handful of people I know, you know, PR companies that I could highly recommend to people, where I know they're definitely reliable and they'll do what they say they do, and John is one of them. So definitely. Well, guys, as I said, really enjoyed talking to you both. I'm going to have to rest the throat a bit. I'm trying to behave myself because, believe me, Valentine, I could go on. As some of the other episodes will evident that. Because I was getting excited and I was very interested, obviously, as it come across. But definitely get you back on. You know, look to talk to you again. So I want to send a shout out to everybody who's watched live again today or watches back on the podcast later. It's greatly appreciated. Shout out to John at Ashmedia, of course. Shout out to you, Valentine, and you, Spencer, as well. It's been great to connect and talk to you. Awesome stuff. Definitely check out Black Daggers, folks. Highly recommended. I will be back tomorrow. I have 2 guests tomorrow, so just support, subscribe, follow the channel. I'm usually on every day talking to somebody. And take care, everyone. Have a good weekend. And as I say at the end of every show, when I hit end stream, it looks like I'm possessed again because there's delay. So here we go, awkward pause time.